Okay, thank you. Yes, let's begin our webinar tonight on the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund. Tonight's conversation will be led by Carl Wiener, who will start us off here. Thank you so much for joining us for this discussion.
Yes, to all the attendees out there, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to participate in this. And we do ask for your participation. My name is Carl Wenner. I'm the chair of the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Advisory Committee that was set up to administer the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund. This webinar is to try to educate Oregonians and bring information out about who we are and what we're trying to accomplish. It's all in the name. It's about Oregon. It's about the whole state. It's about conservation. It's about recreation. That is our mandate, to foster both conservation and outdoor recreation throughout Oregon. And we are really hopeful in getting a lot of interest in our efforts so that you all can help us achieve our goals. We are all quite fortunate to live in the wonderful state of Oregon. And in this time of COVID, everyone is appreciating the outdoors more and more and recognizing how fortunate we are to have the access we have to the great outdoors with the tremendous natural heritage that Oregon possesses. Our fund is all about preserving that heritage and enhancing Oregonians' opportunities to engage in it. And without any further ado, I would like to go ahead and proceed with having Davia Palmeri, who is our staff person, incredibly valuable individual for us. She's a staff person with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and has been absolutely critical in us achieving our goals and moving us forward. She's going to start with an outline and history and basically describe who we are. And once again, I want to really thank you all for participating. You have the opportunity to ask questions via the chat. Jessica will be monitoring that, and please go ahead and ask questions whenever you want. We'll also have some time at the end, but we're more than happy to stop and answer your questions as we go. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. So Davia, can you go ahead and take over and bring everybody up to speed on who we are?
Absolutely. Thank you, Carl. And thank you to the Wildlands Network for hosting this webinar tonight. The Department of Fish and Wildlife is really excited to share this information with you today. And I am the Conservation Policy Coordinator for the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And I wanted to start our conversation with the Department of Fish and Wildlife's mission, which is to protect and enhance Oregon's fish and wildlife and their habitats for use and enjoyment by present and future generations. We as Oregonians can sometimes seem to have divergent views on so many issues, but the one thing that seems to unite us is a shared sense of value for Oregon's natural beauty, which includes our fish, wildlife, and other biodiversity, and all of the ways that we enjoy those resources, whether it's hiking, biking, bird watching, fishing, hunting, camping, climbing, skiing, snowshoeing, and I'm sure many other outdoor recreation activities that you all participate in. The Department of Fish and Wildlife has always had a role in preventing and reversing declines in our fish and wildlife species. And our conversation tonight is about looking to the future, where all Oregonians contribute to and care about Oregon successfully protecting the wildlife of the state. So this story starts about 100 years ago, actually a little bit more than that, when the greatest threat to fish and wildlife was overharvest from mostly commercial hunting and fishing activities. And if you think about the origins of Oregon itself, really founded on beaver trapping and salmon fishing and the timber industries. So the department was created to solve this problem of overharvest, charging fees for licenses to participate in hunting and fishing, And that's predominantly covered the expenses for the science, research, monitoring, and habitat restoration work that has successfully restored many of Oregon's iconic species. Thus, the primary users of the system helped create a system to build long-term sustainability for our fish and wildlife. But the state of Oregon still relies almost entirely on fishing and hunting fees to support all of the work we do to protect fish and wildlife. Today, the greatest threats to fish and wildlife are more complex and diverse, and perhaps this slide is a little dramatic, but I wanted to make that connection that really a lot of the issues facing fish and wildlife are on a global scale. And we all, as humans and Oregonians, have a role in causing these issues, but also in solving them. These challenges include things like habitat loss from developing the energy resources that we all need to live our lives, water quality issues from agricultural and agriculture and the way that we take care of our lawns, and dramatic changes in habitat suitability caused by climate change. On top of all of that, we all have an interest in maintaining the natural diversity. That is why so many of us choose to live in Oregon. Fish and wildlife relies on the same lands and waters that we all do for our health and outdoor recreation opportunities. When Oregonians have been asked about how they think the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the work that we do is supported, the answer is overwhelmingly my tax dollars. And the story here tonight is that the Department of Fish and Wildlife is less than 10% funded by tax dollars and almost entirely reliant on those hunting and fishing fees. So the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund is a brand new approach that sets out to prove that all Oregonians care about and have a stake in the fate of Oregon's fish and wildlife. Back in 2015, the state realized that hunting and fishing fees could not keep up with the rising cost of protecting fish and wildlife from these complex challenges that we all face. At the same time, the newest edition of the Oregon Conservation Strategy was released. The strategy highlights 294 fish and wildlife species of concern and the actions that we could and should take with adequate funding to safeguard those resources for all of us. The legislature directed a task force of Oregonians to consider a way to diversify how we as a state pay for the management needed for all species, from Oregon spotted frog to trumpeter swans. The recommendation was the creation of the Oregon Conservation Fund that we're talking about tonight. The fund was created in 2019, along with the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Advisory Committee that Carl mentioned. The fund is all about implementing the Oregon Conservation Strategy and connecting people with the outdoors. The catch here is that the legislature challenged us to demonstrate that this support exists, that Oregonians care and are interested and excited about this. They have asked us to generate $1 million worth of donations from Oregonians in order to unleash another $1 million for the conservation and recreation projects that are needed to keep our state the special place that it is. That's why we're all here tonight. In order to meet that $1 million goal, we're seeking to pursue $10 from 100,000 people to really show that groundswell of support, to show that we have that shared value behind us. We built a diverse coalition of organizations and individuals from a huge variety who care about Oregon's fish, wildlife, and their habitats for a huge variety of reasons. From the Humane Society of the United States to the Oregon Hunters Association, from the Oregon Zoo to the Oregon Mountain Bikers Association. And we're hoping tonight that you'll join us in funding the future today. So one of the most important questions about the Conservation and Recreation Fund is how are we spending the money that's in this fund? So the department has an Oregon Conservation and Recreation Advisory Committee that has been seeking proposals for projects that fall within our scope within the Oregon Conservation Strategy, and really focused on the idea of closing gaps in outdoor equity, in access to outdoor opportunities, and in reducing barriers to entry for people to participate in outdoor recreation in the state. And so in September of this year, the Conservation and Recreation Advisory Committee approved 8 projects, including one with sea otters, the image you see here tonight. And I'll show you a short video in a few moments about a few of those projects. And the committee just met today and approved 7 additional projects from a slate of 65 potential projects worth over $500,000 of good ideas and work that should be done here in Oregon. Ideas like the Western Bumblebee Atlas, which is a really exciting project to get everyone involved in documenting Western bumblebee, where they occur, and help us understand causes of decline for that species. Another project taking urban teens out for their first camping experience in the Portland metro area to create good experiences and motivation to have more. As well as a variety of community science projects that seek to empower Oregonians to participate in the process of counting and documenting and understanding our Oregon species like the Western pond turtle. There is much work still to be done to protect that Oregon way of life that we all love. And ultimately, we're betting on all Oregonians to be conservationists and help us fund the rest of this great suite of projects. So I have a short video to show you of projects already funded, and then we'll turn it over to Derek from Trout Unlimited. He'll tell you about his project.
Hello from Cascadia Wild. Our community science project collects data on rare carnivores of the Mount Hood National Forest, connecting volunteers with wildlife while supporting research and management.
Our mission is to restore a population of sea otters to the Oregon coast, and in the process, help make our marine ecosystem more robust and resilient.
Hello from Mochico Trails. We're developing a trail plan for the Mochico National Forest and Crooked River grasslands. Trail use is exploding in our area, and our plan will minimize the effect this increase in use will have on wildlife.
And I'll turn it over to Derek to tell us about the project that the Conservation and Recreation Fund is supporting with Trout Unlimited.
Great, thank you very much, Davia. So my name is Derek Staub. I'm the Pacific Northwest Education Coordinator for Trout Unlimited. And our project is called Missing Link, a service learning project. And the work that we're doing is on Link Creek, which is in the upper Metolius watershed. And it's a really great way to be able to connect a diversity of youth to a really compelling restoration and conservation project. So we're basically going to be working on the upper tributary of the Metolius that feeds into Subtle Lake. And part of it is a restoration and conservation project where we're going to be restoring rearing and spawning habitat for sockeye, chinook, and a diversity of other species in that part of the drainage. And then we're going to be connecting a nice mix of youth to the project, about 200 students per school year. They're going to be able to seasonally connect to learning about Link Creek and the Metolius system. And then also, hopefully, if all goes well, get their hands dirty to be able to help us plant plants at the tail end of our project to be able to make sure that we can fix up Link Creek and make sure it's great habitat for returning salmon to that zone. And if you're not that familiar with the upper Metolius, the Metolius as a river system is a pretty incredible system. It's has the best water quality for a full river in the state of Oregon. It is definitely an ecological and fish stronghold, incredible mix of species, also just incredible old growth forest around it. So for students, we're working with students from the Portland area. We're working with students from Madras, Warm Springs, Sisters, Camp Sherman, and a nice mix of students coming into that area. And so we feel really very, very thankful to be able to receive this, one of the early awards. And we feel like we've got a really great mix of components with the project, both with conservation, recreation, and education that are all mixed together in one fun project. So I guess ecologically, from a restoration standpoint, we are going to be placing 65 whole trees at 20 sites along the stream. And so we're basically trying to help hold on to good spawning habitat by retaining spawning gravels, having more shelter for young fish and returning adults. So yeah, I think it's a really good mixed project, and that's what I wanted to share tonight. And I guess as the evening unfolds, I'm definitely happy to answer some questions about it.
Derek, thank you so much for being willing to describe this. It's important, I think, for everyone to understand the reason we asked Derek is his project really typifies what our fund is all about. We're getting conservation, we're getting people engaged in the outdoors. It's got all the components that we're striving for. So that helps clarify what we're trying to do. And we really appreciate what Trout Unlimited and Derek has been able to do, and we're proud to be able to fund that. So thank you, Derek. And Davia, thank you for a great background. And now we're going to move on to Mauricio Valedrian, one of our other members of the committee, who is our co-chair. He's going to move forward with somewhat of a call to action, and in his inimical way, I'm sure he will inspire you all. So Mauricio, it's all yours.
Good morning, Vietnam. Oh, sorry. It was impossible not to do a little Michael Scott there. So, thank you for having me here. I am, as Carl said, the vice chair of this committee. No idea who thought it would be a good idea for me to be there, but I managed to get there. And I am so excited because, so going back to what Davia was saying, the creation of the fund was in response to a gap, to a particular need that was not being fulfilled by regular ways of funding. And so, and as she said, there was a bet, almost like a dare, to say, do all Oregonians really care about what Oregon's all about? If you go online and you type in most beautiful places on earth, you'll find Oregon there almost all the time. People take pride in this. And I think that every time the question is asked, well, if they really do care, show us that you know, how are we going to show that they care? And oftentimes the same folks step up, and historically is being those folks that really have been either involved in conservation, environmentalism. And I think it's time, or I mean, what we're trying to do is to make an even wider call, meaning there is so, and which is why we're making this with all the materials that we're putting out there, we're trying to make everyone a conservationist, because the definition of conservationist has been very restricted. And in reality, is if you care enough about trying to keep Oregon the way that it is, and with its natural beauty, we have to step up. And so that's what we've been trying to do. I was thinking about how when the creation of the fund and the advisory committee happened, just so you guys know, we've never met in person once, because right after this happened, the pandemic struck, and still we managed to get a lot of these beautiful projects funded. We have another round coming, and more importantly, just this morning we had a meeting where we set the new basically made the vote on making a new recommendation. We went even further to say we like to recommend that all this of the 65 projects that came our way, about more than $500,000 in ask. We went through the process of trying to select those that we thought would be, would have a better chance of making it through the filtering process. Anyways, we ended up with about 30 of them, and we said that we're going to do our very best to try to get all those 30 funded, if ultimately the legislation manages to make them match with our donations and the monies that we've collected so far. So unusual circumstances call for unusual solutions. In the immortal words of Bear Grylls' meme, because I don't know if you ever did say that, improvise, adapt, and overcome. So this is what we are here all about. We need to make sure that we are asking everyone to be a conservationist, to really show how much they care about keeping Oregon as a natural gem that it is. So I don't know if maybe Jessica or Davia, if we could go to the website for a moment. Or maybe I can try and do that. Yes, here. Let me see if I can manage to get the website going. There you go. Can you all see that? So look at the look at the organizations that we have here. These are logos that you probably would never see together under other circumstance. What this tells me is that we have managed to find a cause that so many people can get behind, and for very good reason. And I'm betting that if we were to ask as many Oregonians as we could to understand what that means, they would also get behind. If you go onto this section of our website, OregonIsAlive.org, and you see the projects that we're funding, you will see that this is the new phase of conservation. And this is something that I'm hoping will go beyond OCRF, but just it becomes an enduring legacy of what it means to care about our state in the way that we do. Hopefully we'll have an even more updated list as we get more projects funded, but these will give you an idea of what's at stake here and why our existence is so necessary. So while we're here, we're also making it very easy for anybody to just click in here and show up with $10 or more if they can, to figure out, and you can even look at what specifically, what is it that matters to you, get to understand how it was created, what was the need, is the committee trying to achieve these goals. Basically, what I'm trying to say is really this easy. And to share this with those folks that you know, anywhere, both part of your organizations or just in the wild, this is how we step up to the challenge, to this dare that the legislation is giving us. Do you care? Then show us how you do. And I'm hoping that I just about covered everything that I was supposed to cover there. Again, thank you for bearing with me, and thank you for being here tonight. I'm just gonna toss it back to Carl.
Mauricio, thanks so much for expressing that in such a nice way and compelling way. As Mauricio pointed out, we have those 8 projects that we funded, but as of today, we funded 7 more, which we will post. But a more compelling story was we had 65 proposals totaling $500,000 of requests, and we had $60,000 to spend. So we could only fund less than 10% of those 65 incredible projects. What we are intending to do, we've selected the top tier of those projects, and we are going to do everything we can in the near term to fund them specifically. So $10 to the OCRF fund is not just a nice gesture. It will be going on the ground. These are projects ready to go, all worthy, and we're ready to fund them. We are going to really pull out all the stops and have a campaign in the remaining 6 months of our tenure. We are due to sunset at the end of the year, but hopefully we'll have an extension through the legislature. But what we've decided to do is focus on getting I believe the number is something like 22 projects out of that 65 that we felt were so compelling that we just couldn't say no. And we have got to get the funding to get those projects on the ground. So,
hey, Carl, and if you don't mind me just adding one more thing that I also think would be pertinent at this moment is any donations that make it between now and January will go directly to funding the next projects in our list of priorities. So this is a timely matter. And so we definitely appreciate those of you who can make that ask sooner rather than later.
Thanks, Mauricio. And another compelling aspect of that is that was mentioned earlier, but I'll just reiterate. is we have all assurances that whatever we raise is going to be matched by the Oregon Legislature. So there will be, for every dollar that you put in or is put into our fund, there's going to be another dollar that we're going to be able to spend in the next biennium. And so the higher number we get, the more we're going to be able to put back on the ground. And the other important thing for us and why we're holding webinars like this is we want to show the legislature that Oregonians care about this, that it's important to them. Right now, we've had over 12,000 individual donors. We'd like that to be 100,000. We want to go to the legislature and say, we had 100,000 people give us money. But 12,000 is still pretty darn impressive. And I think we got 45 attendees here. So if we could make it 12,045, that'd be just wonderful. So we're really trying to push this along. We have a compelling story, and I appreciate all the panelists' efforts to explain to you all what we're all about. So at this point, I think that pretty much covers it. We know we're taking time out of your day, but we would certainly like to entertain any questions that you might have. I think we have to do that through the chat mechanism. And Jessica, have you been tracking that?
Yes, so there's been a couple of questions, and I know Derek has answered a few of those already. One of the questions from Susan Applegate, does the OCRF have to be renewed each year? Is there a requirement of funds raised in order for the legislature to renew OCRF? Davia, did you want to address that question?
Sure thing. Thanks, Susan. And Susan, I'll point out, actually was one of the other recipients in the first round of projects, and she worked with a bunch of partners to create Western pond turtle habitat on her property. So thank you for that, Susan. The answer is the Conservation and Recreation Fund will need to be renewed this coming year in 2021. And it will depend on how the legislature approaches that. They might give us another 2 years for the program and we'll have to ask for it again, or they might permanently authorize it. And so there's kind of two pathways there, but there's at least one more opportunity where we're going to be asking to continue the program. And there is no requirement for meeting the funds raised in order to continue the program. And we're actually in a situation now where, because of the impact of COVID-19 on the state's budget, we have rather than $1 million, if we raise $1 million, we now have a promise of whatever we raise being matched. And so we're in a little bit of a safer position in that way. If we raise $999,000, we should be able to get that matched.
Great, thank you for that, Davia. Laura King has a question. I'm going to just read the whole question. This is exciting work. In a time of division and COVID, it occurs to me that this program is a silver lining in this moment to bring people together. As we said earlier, COVID has made many Oregonians more appreciative of our outdoors and natural resources. Also, it seems you have a wonderful, compelling vision that should speak to every Oregonian, everyone a conservationist. Can someone discuss what your communication strategy is? Mauricio, I was hoping you could address this question.
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of strategy, we're highly dependent on coalition members. We have fairly superficial social media presence. We're trying to expand, but we're making it to a certain degree a grassroots effort as it stands. So we are always welcoming new opportunities to reach even more folks. And if you want, Jessica, I can maybe speak a little bit about her second question.
Yes, please.
Which she says, you speak of connecting youth. What about retirees who have skills and time to offer? So I think we're trying to expand the scope as much as we can. Anybody who has not been called upon before, that is our target audience at this moment. We want to see folks that would never see themselves as conservationists, to feel some sense of ownership, of this land and its natural beauty. So because we are very much dependent on the coalition members and organizations that already have either reached out to us or we've been able to connect with them either through ODFW or otherwise, we are extremely welcoming of ideas. If maybe you, Laura, have some way in which you can say like this would be a great way to go after that demographic, I would love to speak with you about that. We don't have a specific idea of what that would look like, but we have big ears to know, to help us imagine what that would look like.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. First of all, Laura, thank you for these great questions. And one of the ways too is we're looking at this as person to person, and each of you that now have heard the story, we're asking that you reach out to your friends and associates and people that you know and say, hey, take a look at this website. Look at what these folks are doing. That's how we're going to try to build this. We're trying to do this on a grassroots level, and you all can be very important participants in that. If what we have said tonight is in any way compelling to you, please tell that story to the folks that you know. So thank you, Laura, for great questions.
Zachary also has a question around the list of projects and where it might be listed on the website. I will say if you go to OregonIsAlive.org, the projects are listed on that website. Carl, maybe you can address more around where the newest list of projects will be located.
Yes, that's an exciting list, and our intention is to get that on the website as soon as we can. We still have to go before the commission, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife Commission, to get approval, but I think we're going to have to come up with some way that we can give folks access to that list, because again, it's quite a compelling list. And so that at some point in the near future, that will show up on the website. So thanks for that question.
And Joel had a question as to whether or not there would be an opportunity to donate through the state tax returns. Davia?
Yes, I can comment on that. Thanks, Joel. There is on the Oregon state tax forms, there's a list of organizations that you can make a donation to, and there is a check-off box for the Oregon Non-Game Conservation Fund, which is a small program in the department, and we can access those funds for the Conservation and Recreation Fund. There's so many opportunities on that tax form that we generally only get a few dollars a year from that. And so that would be really great.
We need to publicize that, Davia. I wasn't even aware of that. So we're gonna make some noise about that. Thanks for asking that question.
And then I think I have one other comment related to the project list on OregonIsAlive.org. As you scroll down, there's a subsection that says what it is, and at the bottom of that says see the projects being funded. That has the list of projects, including Trout Unlimited and Caldera's project that you heard about from Derek. Once this next round of projects is ready, we will have them posted there. And we'll also have a list of projects that are ready to go if money becomes available. And we hope that if there is a project of specific interest to a donor, that they might want to direct funds towards that particular project. So that'll be an opportunity in the future.
Yeah, to reiterate what Davia just said, and this was brought up by Mark Labhart, who is one of our committee members who's in the audience. If there's some project that we've already funded or that you find really compelling, there's an opportunity to do what we call restricted donation, where the donation would be earmarked for that particular project. And we received several large donations to the tune of 5 figures for some of these projects that people really resonated with them or their organization. So we have that opportunity to accept restricted funds, and that'll become a little more clear too in the future as we move forward funding these projects.
So Laura had a third comment. Laura King, thank you for your questions, Laura, by the way. Davia, I was hoping that maybe you could address this. She had a question around the matching funds that were originally allocated in the legislature for the state match on the OCRF. Could you address that, Davia?
I can. Thanks, Laura. And I think your point is well taken. But it matters to the legislature, and what we've heard from members of the legislature, that there was a commitment made to match funds raised. And so we do have a verbal commitment that they would like to honor that, in that every dollar we've collected so far, the person who gave it was expecting that match to show up. And the legislature has expressed that they do feel like that's important. We cannot necessarily predict what will happen on that front. And so we can just go off of the information we have.
I'm going through all the comments and questions that Laura King has posited. And first of all, we did not plant Laura in the audience. She's doing this on her own, and we really appreciate her bringing these things up. I do want to comment on something she mentioned. She found us when she was trying to look into donating regarding wildfires. And a great example is we have as one of the projects that made our list that we would like to fund, but we did not have the funds currently to fund, is the Soda Mountain Trail Restoration Project in the Soda Mountain Monument area around Ashland, where there was tremendous damage by wildfires. And there's an organization there that is going to carry out trail restoration and infrastructure improvement, as well as habitat restoration as a result of the wildfires. So we have that capability to address all of the issues across the state, including the wildfires that were so devastating, both on the human and on the terrestrial level. So thanks again, Laura.
You know, something that I did probably a terrible job expressing before is that the overwhelming majority of the 65 projects that we received, absolutely, we would love to fund right away. And it was extremely hard to try to pick which ones we could fund right now and how we go about trying to fund the rest, which is how the conversation that we had today was so satisfying to me personally, which is that we are going through this 7 or 8 right now, but we are committed to keep moving down into the next project, and all of them, which is all the things that they are trying to address. I think maybe somebody else brought it up into the comments somewhere. For instance, the Lens Youth Initiative, that is the kind of thing that is going to create a long-lasting effect on what it means to create new conservationists on demographics that so far have not been brought into this conversation. And so that's why, I mean, we are talking about the future generations of Oregonians, trying to address those who will become the ones that are taking the baton in the conservation efforts in the future. So so many of these projects are just, obviously they need that now, more during COVID times, more after wildfires, more after all this turmoil that we're going through. So this is the time to remember for all of us, you know, how is it that we can make this something that we don't have to worry on 2021 or 22, yeah.
Great, we had a question as to whether or not donations were tax deductible. Davia?
Yes, and this is a great question, and we should have addressed this earlier. Yes, absolutely. Donations made through OregonIsAlive.org will go through the Oregon Wildlife Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization, and they will send you information for your taxes.
And Laura also asked about who they should be writing to in the legislature, any champions of the OCRF. Davia?
So I'd love to mention right now Representative Ken Helm from Beaverton, who is on the webinar tonight, who's the primary sponsor and the leader that's helped us get this far with the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund. We're so grateful for his efforts on that front. The bill goes through the House Natural Resources Committee, and the new committees for 2021 have not been posted, but the current chair of that committee is Representative Brad Witt. And so that he's a key supporter as well. And we can provide more information about that once the legislative session is more active.
Great, thank you so much. Ken Helm also wanted to make sure that everyone on this webinar knows that you can donate to the OCRF when renewing your license through the ODFW's online licensing system. I think Davia had mentioned that earlier, that there's been great participation through that system as well. I would again encourage you all to visit OregonIsAlive.org to donate at that website as well. Again, as Davia had mentioned, it is tax deductible. And I want to thank our partners at the Oregon Wildlife Foundation for hosting the fund. We currently don't have any more questions. Carl, would you like to close this webinar for us?
Yes. I first of all, thank all of our panelists and Derek particularly, who's not on our committee but was willing to come and testify as to what he's doing and what our committee has allowed to occur, and we really appreciate that. Jessica has just been phenomenal in her support and the work she has done for us, and we really appreciate that as well. We hope that we answered questions about our fund, and we ask that you spread the word. All of the participants here, if you like what we're doing and how we're proceeding, please spread that word. Use your networks, do the social media, and try to get us out there as much as possible. We're really trying to build a groundswell, not only to raise the money, which is important, but to show Oregonians and the legislators that this is important to Oregonians, and that in the future we can expect more funding to make these things happen and realize the goals that we all have. So again, thank you so much for participating and bearing with us throughout this whole presentation. We've had really nice attendance, and we really appreciate it. Does anybody else on the panel have anything else to say?
I think Nikki Murphy had one last-minute question. Is it okay if I try to answer that, Carl?
Absolutely.
So she asked, what has been the most successful way to engage youth during the pandemic? I'm not sure that we would be the right people to answer this. But that being said, though, what I do know on other efforts of mine is that I think being cooped up at home has made many of these youth even more keen to explore outdoors while it's still safe, during the pandemic. And I think that has brought a renewed sense of connection with nature, both wherever they are, in their neighborhood, in their backyards, in their city parks, in wherever they have access to. And I think that is one way to engage with them and connect on the importance and the relevance of things like OCRF. So hopefully that is a way to address that. Okay, I'll let you close in.
And I'm happy to add to that if that would be helpful. I know that Nikki and I were conversing through another answer if that's helpful. I know for myself, probably the most successful strategy that I've been working with a group of students from Warm Springs, from the reservation, and groups are really small. And I sort of went into the experience thinking that, boy, with these kids, they are online a lot. They're probably going to be tired of being on a screen. And knowing that we have really tiny groups, the interactive dialogue has been outstanding. And I feel like to some extent, sometimes with Zoom or with online learning, you can have big groups, and it can be difficult, as we can see, of trying to be able to connect with each other. And I feel like keeping groups small instead of having the tendency that more is better is worth thinking about, because I sort of went into the experience working with these students that we have a program where we have 5 students and a couple families with brothers. And they are incredibly chatty, and it's really fun just to be able to have the interactions with the small groups. And even though we are in different locations and we're trying to communicate through a chat or through raising a hand and being able to converse through imagery or short videos with the small groups, just like in the field, I think small group learning is really critical to make sure that you can really have just the interaction. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you, Derek. Well, okay, that's great. We really appreciate your participation, and hopefully if you got other ideas, don't hesitate to communicate with us. We're all into thinking of ways to reach out to people, and if you got better ideas than we've postulated, then please let us know. Otherwise, I think we can call this done.
Yeah, thank you all for attending tonight's webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Jessica at Wildlands Network, Jessica at wildlandsnetwork.org, or Davia at ODFW. We'd be happy to answer any further questions or pass them on to the panelists tonight. Again, I know we're getting to the end here, so I just want to thank you again for any donations that you donate to the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund as we move forward towards the end of the year. OregonIsAlive.org is where you can make that donation.
Thanks you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Bye-bye.